A happy Friday to you for lcpioneers.com live, presented by PioStream, broadcasting 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, and all of our shows archived on YouTube, youtube.com/lcpios, bringing you stories from our student athletes, coaches, alumni, and Lewis and Clark community members to try to keep us going through the summer months and into fall 2020. Hi there, I'm Ryan Goff. I'm the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark. We are the Pioneers out of Portland, Oregon, a member of the NCAA Division III ranks and competing with over 430 other institutions at the Division III level. A chance for our student athletes to compete on a national scale and within the Northwest Conference. We're a member of that 9-team conference against other institutions from throughout Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington, and also with Lewis and Clark's fantastic overseas study program, an opportunity for our student athletes and students alike to go all over the world and get a thorough experiential liberal arts education, a really good mix out of Portland, Oregon. And we are excited to keep our guests showing up on the show. We're going to have Margaret Dowling, a class of 2012 alumnus, join us, a former dual sports student athlete. She was a fantastic student athlete for two teams, volleyball and women's basketball, experienced a ton of success, all Northwest Conference type success with our programs, and excited to catch up with her because she's involved in the medical field. We'll have a chance to kind of catch up with where she went post Lewis and Clark and get her stories as we have with a lot of our other alumni on the show. We do invite you to connect, and if you have a question to ask of Margaret or any of our guests, you can do so in our Facebook Live comments. You can also do so by emailing us, sports@lclark.edu, and you can connect with us on Instagram and Twitter. We are LC Pioneers on both of those platforms as well. A couple of things we want to let you know about. If you go to lcpioneers.com, you can see the latest information about Lewis and Clark athletics. You can catch up also on some past interviews. We've shared that YouTube link a couple of times, youtube.com/lcpios, to see some of our past interviews. We haven't posted on the front page yet of lcpioneers.com our discussion yesterday with Sabrina Murray, a rising senior for women's swimming. You can see some of our other episodes there. And big shout out to the volleyball program getting the Team Academic Award from ABCA. And then also a message from the Northwest Conference, as earlier this week, the President's Council did announce that fall sports for 2020 will be by and large postponed. Football for Lewis and Clark women's soccer, as well as the Northwest Conference men's soccer programs, volleyball and women's rowing will not compete in fall 2020. Those are going to be postponed till spring at the earliest. They are going to try to have a men's and women's cross country season. Men's and women's golf and men's and women's tennis will also have the opportunity to compete. From the Northwest Conference standpoint, that autonomy is giving to the institutions to decide whether or not their student athletes will compete. There is one institution in the conference that has already decided that no fall sports will happen. Lewis and Clark has not yet made that decision. Currently, athletics director Mark Petrock and the rest of the executive council working on the logistics of how that would look. And as soon as we have updates available for you, we'll share them at lcpioneers.com/COVID. That is our reopening for fall 2020 landing page with all the information specific to athletics. We are also linking through to the Lewis and Clark College reopening page too, which has a lot more information pertaining outside of just the athletics world. So be sure to bookmark that, lcpioneers.com/COVID, and we'll do our best to keep you informed as we navigate a continuing pandemic that's affecting us not only locally, but nationally and worldwide. With that said, let's bring in our guest for today as we moved into week 17 of the show. Believe it or not, we are excited to bring in Margaret Dowling. She's a class of 2012 alumnus of Lewis and Clark, and we welcome her into the show. Margaret, thanks so much for taking some time out of your Friday to join us. And it's been fun this week because not only you, but Kelly Edwards was on earlier this week, and you were both part of my initial experience at Lewis and Clark. Can you believe it's been 10 years since PioStream showed up when I first got to know you?
Not at all. It's great to be here. It's nice to see you again, Ryan. It's definitely been a while, but it doesn't feel like 10 years, that's for sure.
That's great. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, we're in unprecedented times right now, and I'm definitely going to ask you some questions pertaining to the health field about things that you've either seen or how your business has been affected. But I like to start alumni interviews with the origin story. What is it about Lewis and Clark, maybe the Portland area, that really appealed to you as to why you decided to come here for your undergraduate?
Yeah, that's a great question and not something I've thought about for a while. But in general, I was, as you mentioned, two-sport athlete, and was really excited to play both sports. I'm from California. Both my parents went to California schools, so that was kind of originally where the path was. But when I got contacted by Coach Lori and Coach Folks to consider Lewis and Clark, the opportunity to play both sports was just too good to pass up. And then, not to mention, it's a beautiful campus. It's an excellent school, and I'm not the level to go pro or anything like that. So really wanted to be able to get a good education while also enjoying the athletic piece. Yeah, I was, as a high school athlete, so obviously, you're still developing quite a bit as you come in into your college career. But was a captain on both of my high school teams. Volleyball was a stronger sport in my high school than basketball at the time, although we were growing and becoming quite competitive in my senior year in basketball. So I think it was somewhat even, although, different skill sets, of course, to play both sports.
Yeah, I mean, the dual sport student athlete role is an amazing thing. I mean, just the fact that anyone can compete in multiple sports, especially at the NCAA level. But you were outstanding. I mean, like I'm talking about, team leader in both sports, and had a lot of opportunities to help our teams excel. Kind of describe development, over the course of those 4 years, while you were able to rise up to such a high level, both as a volleyball and women's basketball student athlete.
Yeah, I think part of being a student athlete, and especially at Lewis and Clark, where you not only have uh, you know individuals that are excited to do their schooling and sports, and so there's a bit more of time commitment to both, and there might be at a D1 or D2 level. But you're also, because of that, and because individuals are accepted to Lewis and Clark based on their academic achievements, you're playing with some really intelligent individuals too, and so I really enjoyed that part of both sports. You're playing with individuals who are excited to talk about the strategy and kind of be a part of the growth and development of organizations, as well as your own athletic ability. So, for me, playing both sports, volleyball always came first. So I didn't get to spend as much time with my basketball teammates at the beginning of the season. Usually there was a few week overlap. But basketball is also a very long season, so you get a lot of time together anyway.
Margaret Dowling joining us on lcpioneers.com live, former dual sport athlete for volleyball and women's basketball. And your time with the women's basketball program were some of the best times in recent memory. In fact, the NCAA Division III level, with Lewis and Clark being a member of that institution, is going into its 25th year. And immediately when the conference asked for some ideas on teams to celebrate from the NCAA era, I thought of your women's basketball programs that eventually went on too, with Christina Williams being an All-American to conference titles and such. I guess my point in asking that and bringing that up, Margaret, is describe Julie Folks and the way that this women's basketball program took a rise. You were kind of there with Christina Williams, a year younger than you. What do you remember most about why you guys were able to have the success you did?
Yeah, I think about those years a lot. Such great basketball, and just such a fun group of strong, powerful women who I really respect to this day. I think one of the pieces that made us really successful was the kind of respect that we all had for each other's skill sets, and everyone really played their role. And that was really important to us, is that, if you do your role and you show up and you fill that role, then we'll do well as a team. And we had Spence, who just owned it in the paint. both Spence and Neva did and could also shoot the three. Of course, Christina and Sarah and Katie and Taylor all, just rocking it up at the guard. And I'm missing people, of course. But it's just, we had some depth. We were versatile. You had, guards who can rebound. You had posts who could shoot threes. You were just such a threat in that regard. And so that was really fun. When you're playing teams, they just, they're trying to guard Neva in the post, and she goes out and shoots a three, and they're just kind of like, I don't know what to do with this. And it was such a great feeling.
It was truly an amazing time. I mean, the team ended up going year last year 25-4, NCAA national tournament appearance, and it just really was a marquee time. And now Christina Williams, as the head coach of the program, is working on trying to get the team back to that level, and is excited to have so many key pieces coming back for her third year this upcoming season. I'm curious, as we've talked a lot about being on the court, when you look back at your time as an undergraduate at Lewis and Clark, outside of athletics, what are some of your fondest memories, whether it was a class or a professor or an organization? What do you remember most?
Mm. Um, Outside of athletics, the friendships that I made still carry through to this day. I had a really close group of friends that weren't volleyball and basketball players as well. And spent kind of all 4 years living with them and spending a lot of time with them. And so, I think the friendships that I was able to cultivate at Lewis and Clark are just, I cherish those so much. I also think one of the things that I really appreciated about my time at Lewis and Clark was just your ability to participate in multiple organizations or just be involved in a lot more than just one thing. So as a student athlete, you're able to be involved in other pieces of student athlete life and kind of advocating for student athletes on campus, which was something that I was really excited about being involved in. You're also able to get involved in your classes, and I spent some time kind of working with the Career Center in my senior year, making some proposals for how that could be used in more advantageously for students as a part of a class. But just the ability to actually make change at a school that's of a smaller size and really values their students' voices was just really, really important to me.
You're watching lcpioneers.com live on Facebook Live, Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time, archived youtube.com/lcpios. Margaret Dowling's our guest, class of 2012 graduate, and now VP of Clinical Engagement for Hinge Health. Kind of walk us through post Lewis and Clark. You go through commencement. What were your goals? What was your path to kind of get to where you are today?
Yeah, when I graduated from Lewis and Clark, I graduated with a psych degree. I had done pre-med for the majority of my time at Lewis and Clark, but then wasn't convinced that was the direction that I wanted to go in. So after Lewis and Clark, I spent a few years kind of discovering that. I worked in emergency rooms as a medical scribe in the Portland area. A little bit lost, not sure where I wanted to go. I learned about public health from my time in the emergency room. Getting kind of frustrated at the gaps in care that were available to certain individuals who might not be able to take care of themselves as well as others, for example, those with addictions or homelessness, and really wanted to learn more about how I could make change there. So I went on to get my master's of public health from the University of Michigan, which part of the reason I chose that school was its really great public health department, but also being able to go to a big sports school was quite exciting for me, and absolutely loved that. Had season tickets to most sports each year. So at Michigan, I studied public health with a focus in health behavior and health education, which essentially is a degree that helps you learn how to empower, how to set up systems to empower individuals to take care of themselves to, as much of a degree as possible. Communities, individuals, population level. And then during my time there, I had some exposure to the world of entrepreneurship and had some jobs during grad school working with some startups and helping start a nonprofit. And I really fell in love with um, starting organizations that are, addressing pain points that haven't been addressed before, or just addressing them in new and creative ways. And so that led me to my career today, which is with a company called Hinge Health, which when I joined was just about 10 individuals, just getting off the ground startup. And now we're, a little over 300 and growing every day.
Wow, that's a tremendous story on the growth of a company, and you described, this entrepreneurial itch that you kind of explored. And one thing that we really enjoy talking about with Lewis and Clark students is now with the rise of the Bates Center for Entrepreneurship, there's going to be an entrepreneurship minor, health studies minor available starting 2020-21. I'm curious, what made you think that like, hey, entrepreneurship is something that I'm interested in exploring, and how does maybe Lewis and Clark kind of develop that moment in undergrads?
Yeah. I think the liberal arts degree, it's known for giving you a lot of exposure into different, kind of areas of study and areas of interest. And so, at the time, it can be, as a student, you might want to, major in business or in medicine. And so it can sometimes be a little bit frustrating to not have a degree that's so straightforward. But then, at the end of the day, I've talked to a lot of my friends about their liberal arts experience, and the exposure and the small amount of knowledge that I have about a lot of things just is so beneficial, especially in a leadership role that I'm in today. And it really kind of opens your eyes to solving problems in creative ways and helping to, understanding different populations or how different industries work. And then you can kind of steal ideas from that industry and apply it to yours. So it really gives you that kind of level of respect and awareness of what's going on outside of your core common interest. So I think for me, when the way that I was kind of exposed to entrepreneurship was through a challenge course at the University of Michigan that essentially gave students the opportunity to try to start a business and pitch it to investors and then win some money to try to grow that business. So myself and a few peers enrolled, and we ended up winning a small sum of money to try to start our business called Skillet, which didn't go anywhere, but that's okay. The learnings were more valuable. But joining that course, I didn't really have any hesitations, because I feel like at Lewis and Clark, you kind of approach things from that experimental mindset, and you approach things with that like mindset of I know a little bit about this, or I can learn this, even though it's not my core area of study. And so I think it did prepare me, although it's not something that I actively thought about at the time. But thinking back, I can really see the connection.
Now, I don't know, if you've been impacted directly or indirectly from the coronavirus pandemic, from COVID-19. I'm curious, through the lens of someone who at least is in a medical field, what have you seen from the pandemic? Is it having an impact either in your world or in public health? What kind of experience have you seen in the last 3 or 4 months with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing we can say about COVID-19 and this pandemic is that it's impacting everything in some way, whether positive or negative. Definitely in the public health field, something we talk about a lot is these social determinants of health, which are these kind of key areas that people need to thrive and be successful and just live their lives. And if one of those is damaged, it really impacts your health, or if one of those isn't being fulfilled. And so, absolutely with the coronavirus, or people's, significant job loss, parents are becoming teachers, and many other kind of outcomes from the last few months. You see it in the public health field, a lot of concern about what's going to happen. Another piece of public health is that what happens right now can impact someone or a population, years, decades down the line. And so, it's something that we're all interested to keep an eye on, is just how this is, what this is going to do down the line. In terms of my business, Hinge Health works with individuals with chronic musculoskeletal pain and helps them avoid unnecessary surgeries and unnecessary drugs through kind of conservative treatment, so movement, health coaching, education, that sort of thing. We've certainly seen a reduction in surgeries just because individuals don't want to go into the hospital if they don't need it, so these voluntary surgeries. But we expect that that'll bounce back, and we'll continue our mission to help avoid those.
Well, and we're starting to see some aspects of normal life, but I certainly think normal life is a long way away holistically. But baseball showed up yesterday, and we finally at
Yeah,
least have some sports on TV. A little semblance of normalcy. Was that nice to see?
absolutely, absolutely. My fiance and I were just so thrilled to be sitting on the couch watching baseball. We made hot dogs. We were soaked. And it's weird. It's really weird. I have conflicting feelings on whether it's the right thing to do or not. Sports bring a lot of soothing to the soul, and it's also putting lives at risk, getting this kind of production going. So, wear a mask, everyone, and hopefully we can continue to have sports in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. Really appreciate you taking the time to spend about 20 minutes with us on the show. It's great to catch up with you, and yeah, best of luck in the near future. Please stay safe. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks so much. Nice to see you, Ryan.
That's Margaret Dowling joining us on lcpioneers.com live. And yeah, I mean, her work in the health field, what was neat to talk, hear kind of her experiences post Lewis and Clark is she had, this experience at Michigan that kind of opened her eyes to the world of entrepreneurship. And there's aspects of that now. I mean, she's class of 2012. The last 5 years, certainly, maybe longer, entrepreneurship has become such a big deal at Lewis and Clark that I could totally see someone like Margaret Dowling taking advantage of the new minor in the entrepreneurship field. We did link in the Facebook Live access to Winterim, which, as she described, Michigan's competition that she went through. Winterim is this week-long entrepreneurship focused curriculum that our students can take advantage of, and it's tied into Advent Oregon, which is one of those similar competitions. A little bit of money, opportunity to start and get something off the ground, and then with her experience too now at Hinge Health and being in a health field, the health studies minor at Lewis and Clark kind of ties into that too. So really great to hear from her. Like I mentioned at the top, when we first started PioStream, added multiple cameras, commentary to a lot more of our sports broadcasts. That was my introduction to Lewis and Clark, and she was one of the first people that I met, especially at a high level. Kelly Edwards, likewise, class of 2011 graduate too. It was just really neat to kind of catch up with both of those two this week, and I hope that you had fun hearing from them as well. And we'll kind of look forward to staying in touch with a lot of our alumni, either through the show or beyond. With baseball, Major League Baseball returning yesterday, and the NBA starting to play scrimmages. Watch the Portland Trailblazers yesterday. She's absolutely, I completely agree. It seems helpful because there's some sports on TV, and I certainly am hoping that everyone involved at these sites that are getting games going stay healthy and stay safe through the precautions that they've set up, because it's great to have some of that normalcy when on the horizon. It doesn't seem like maybe we're going to have much normalcy soon. Hence why it was disappointing to know that, Northwest Conference, we're not going to have sports, with the President's Council deciding earlier that most of the fall sports will not happen, at least in fall 2020. You can read more about that at lcpioneers.com. So please stay safe, and we look forward to having you back on Palatine Hill, back at games as soon as we possibly can. Coming up next week, we'll have Sarah Starnes join us on Tuesday, a recently graduated student athlete from the track and field program. We'll catch up with her. She's an Oregon native, and so we'll hear why she chose Lewis and Clark and see what's on the horizon. In fact, she is featured a lot on the show because she's interviewed during one of our post-show commercials, kind of highlighting the brown bag research that our students get the opportunity to do with professors at Lewis and Clark. And then we're still anticipating our Dean of Equity Inclusion, Mark Figueroa, joining us on Wednesday. And if that's successful, we're planning to have a conversation about social justice, systemic racism, and some of the things that equity and inclusion is offering the Lewis and Clark community for our growth and help to our students of color, our Black students as well. Looking forward to having a conversation with him on Wednesday. And we will continue to post our links for our upcoming interviews at lcpioneers.com/live, which takes you to this Facebook Live page, and you can see all of our past interviews at youtube.com/lcpios. So until we talk to you again next Tuesday for more of the show, I'm Ryan Goff. Thanks for having fun with us. We will see you again for lcpioneers.com Live, streaming Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, and available on demand at youtube.com/lcpios. Until then, goodbye, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Lewis and Clark is amazing.
Beautiful campus, small classes.
When you really come here, you get this sense, the feeling that this is a place that you could spend 4 years.
I was so comfortable learning and growing here.
There's no ostentation, there's no pretension, no status. Everyone's just here to learn.
To this bustling metropolitan area.
The overseas program is giving you the opportunity to explore the world, go to places that you never thought of. Just come here, just visit the school, and you're gonna fall in love with it.
It's time to explore Lewis and Clark.
My favorite spot on campus is like right outside the Dovecote, little benches, and there's flowers growing there, and you can get a little coffee at the Dovecote and sit there.
My favorite spot on campus is definitely the weight room. I get that everybody loves like the gardens or the manor house, but our facilities for athletics here are actually amazing too, and the weight room is definitely my favorite spot.
My favorite spot on campus would either be the glade outside of the athletic facilities or South Campus.
What is my favorite spot on campus? I really like the back porch of the manor house. It looks out on Mount Hood, and on a clear day, it's super beautiful just to sit around with friends.